Why everyone gets Nordic countries wrong. The socialism myth exposed. Everyone thinks Nordic countries are socialist paradises, but I'm about to expose the biggest financial lie that's keeping you broke. This one myth about Sweden, Norway, and Denmark is costing Americans millions of dollars. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to build wealth the Nordic way without waiting for politicians to save you. But first, let me blow your mind with something that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about money. The richest people in Nordic countries didn't get wealthy by taking on debt to expand their businesses. They got rich by building debt-free companies that actually keep their profits. Just like Dave Ramsey teaches, debt is the enemy of wealth building, period. Here's what nobody tells you about Nordic countries. They're not socialist. They're capitalist countries with smart financial discipline. Sweden has more billionaires per capita than the United States. Let that sink in. Denmark consistently ranks higher on economic freedom than America. Norway built the world's largest sovereign wealth fund using pure capitalism. They invested oil profits in stocks, real estate, and businesses, all debt-free investments, not leveraged speculation, stock market investing with cash. But here's the kicker that nobody talks about. Nordic countries have some of the lowest debt-to-GDP ratios in the world. They operate their entire economies on Dave Ramsey principles. Live below your means. Save aggressively. Avoid debt like the plague. So why does everyone think these countries are socialist? Because politicians on both sides benefit from keeping you confused. The left says, see, government programs work. The right says, don't become Venezuela. Both are missing the point entirely. Nordic countries figured out how to build wealth without drowning in debt. Their businesses succeed because they're not paying interest to banks. Their people build wealth because they're not sending half their income to creditors. Think about it like this. If you knew you'd never have debt payments, how much more money would you have to invest? How much faster could you build your emergency fund? How much more generous could you be with your family? That's exactly what Nordic entrepreneurs experience. They build debt-free businesses that keep 100% of their profits. But here's the secret that changes everything. You don't need government programs to build wealth without debt. You can start building debt-free wealth today. And I'm going to show you exactly how successful Nordic entrepreneurs think about money. First, they never use debt to start or grow their businesses. Here's a fact that'll shock you. According to recent business failure statistics, over 20% of businesses fail in their first year. Nearly 50% fail within 5 years. And 65% fail within 10 years. The number one reason? Debt service killing their cash flow. They're paying interest instead of reinvesting profits. They're working for the bank instead of working for themselves. Nordic entrepreneurs avoid this trap completely. They start small. They grow slowly. They reinvest profits instead of borrowing money. They build sustainable businesses that can weather any storm because they don't have debt payments crushing them every month. Second, they treat personal debt like a deadly disease. Nordic countries have some of the lowest consumer debt rates in the world, not because they can't get loans, because they refuse to take them. They buy cars with cash. They save for purchases instead of financing them. They pay off their mortgages in half the time. They understand that debt payments steal your wealth-building power. Every dollar you send to a bank is a dollar you can't invest in your future. Every interest payment is money you'll never see again. Every monthly payment is a chain that limits your freedom. Third, they build their emergency funds first. Before they invest in anything, before they start businesses, Before they buy luxury items, they save 6 months of expenses in cash. This isn't just smart financial planning. This is the foundation that makes debt-free living possible. When you have a fully funded emergency fund, you never need to borrow money for unexpected expenses. Car repairs, medical bills, job loss, emergency home repairs, all handled with cash instead of credit cards. Fourth, they invest only with money they can afford to lose. They never borrow money to invest. They never use margin accounts. They never leverage their investments. They invest their own money in simple, boring index funds. They understand that borrowed money amplifies both gains and losses, and the losses can destroy your financial future. Here's what this means for you right now. Stop believing the lie that you need debt to build wealth. Stop thinking that business debt is good debt. Stop borrowing money to invest in anything. Start building wealth the Nordic way, completely debt-free. Pay cash for everything. Save aggressively. Invest only your own money. Build businesses that grow organically. Here's the truth about business debt that nobody wants to tell you. Less than 5% of businesses that start with debt ever become truly wealthy. The rest spend their entire existence working for the bank. Their profits go to interest payments. Their growth is limited by debt service. Their decisions are controlled by lenders. They're not business owners. They're debt slaves with business cards. Nordic entrepreneurs understand this. That's why they start small and grow slowly. That's why they reinvest profits instead of borrowing money. That's why they build businesses that can survive recessions, because they don't have debt payments that must be made regardless of income. You can do the same thing. Start your side business with cash. Grow it slowly using profits. Never borrow money to expand. Never take on business debt. Never finance equipment or inventory. Save the money first, then buy what you need. It takes longer, but it's infinitely safer. And you keep 100% of your profits. The Nordic approach to personal finance is equally powerful. Pay off all your debt before you start investing. All of it. Credit cards, car loans, student loans, personal loans, everything except your mortgage. Then attack your mortgage with focused intensity. Pay it off in 15 years or less. Only then should you start investing beyond your retirement accounts. This might sound extreme, but here's why it works. The average American pays over $400 per month in consumer debt payments. That's $4,800 per year. Over 20 years, that's nearly $100,000. Invested in index funds, that becomes over $300,000. Debt is literally stealing your retirement. Nordic people understand this. That's why they avoid debt like poison. That's why they build wealth so effectively. That's why their approach works. Here's your Nordic wealth-building action plan. List every single debt you have. Credit cards, car loans, student loans, personal loans. Pay minimum payments on everything except the smallest debt. Attack the smallest debt with every extra dollar you have. When it's paid off, attack the next smallest debt. Keep going until you're completely debt-free except your mortgage. Then attack your mortgage with the same intensity. Pay extra principal every month. Refinance to a 15-year loan if you can afford the payments. Pay it off as fast as possible. Once you're completely debt-free, start investing aggressively. Put 15% of your income into simple index funds. Build your emergency fund to 6 months of expenses. Never borrow money for anything ever again. Pay cash for cars. Pay cash for vacations. Pay cash for home improvements. Pay cash for everything. If you can't afford to buy it with cash, you can't afford it. The Nordic model isn't about government programs. It's about financial discipline. It's about living below your means. It's about avoiding debt at all costs. It's about building wealth slowly and safely. The Nordic approach proves that you can build wealth without debt. Their billionaires didn't get rich by borrowing money. They got rich by keeping their money instead of paying it to banks. Their businesses succeed because they're not burdened by debt payments. Their people build wealth because they're not sending half their income to creditors. You can do the same thing, but it requires discipline. It requires patience. It requires saying no to instant gratification. It requires thinking long-term in a short-term world. Most people aren't willing to do this. They want wealth now. They want success immediately. They want to borrow their way to prosperity. But debt doesn't create wealth. Debt destroys wealth. Debt steals your future. Debt makes you a slave to your payments. Nordic entrepreneurs understand this. That's why they avoid debt completely. That's why they build wealth effectively. That's why their approach works. Stop making excuses for debt. Stop calling it good debt or necessary debt. Stop believing that you need debt to build wealth. All debt is bad debt. All debt steals your wealth-building power. All debt makes you less free. The Nordic model proves that debt-free wealth building works. Their success isn't about government programs. It's about financial discipline. It's about living below your means. It's about avoiding debt completely. You can adopt these same principles today. Stop borrowing money for anything. Pay off all your existing debt. Build your emergency fund. Invest only with cash. Build businesses without debt. Live below your means. Save aggressively. Think long-term. Be patient. Be disciplined. The Nordic approach works. The question is, will you work the approach? Will you have the discipline to live debt-free? Will you have the patience to build wealth slowly? Will you have the courage to say no to debt? If you're ready to build wealth the Nordic way, there's something you need to know. Everything I just shared is foundational knowledge, but the real wealth-building strategies, the detailed debt elimination plans, the step-by-step systems that turn debt slaves into millionaires, that's what we dive deep into inside the Luxona Patreon community. This is where serious people come to get serious about debt-free wealth building. We're talking about detailed budgeting strategies, debt elimination blueprints, business building without debt, and wealth-building systems that most people never see. Plus, you get direct access to ask questions and get personalized guidance for your specific situation. The link is in the description below. But before you go anywhere, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell, because we're just getting started with content that shows you exactly how to build real wealth without debt. Not theory, not politics, not get-rich-quick schemes. Real strategies used by real debt-free millionaires. Your future wealthy self will thank you for subscribing right now. The choice is yours. Stay broke, paying interest to banks, or start building wealth the Nordic way, completely debt-free. I'll see you in the next video. Remember, this is Luxona, where millionaires are made.